Hi everyone, Eric Lanon here, host of the Redcast. Today we're going to be speaking with Stephanie King. She's a 3-time certified Salesforce consultant, and we're going to be speaking with her about migrating to Lightning and why you should be doing it now.
Your business.
So let's talk about migration a little bit.
Yeah.
So what Salesforce has kind of communicated to all customers is if you want to, when you're ready to migrate, do the readiness report, and you do that whole 9 yards thing. But what does it look like for a customer to make that migration? They download their Lightning readiness report. They may have some things to update.
Right. So anyone watching this who has a Salesforce org has access to, it's called the Lightning Migration Assistant. And this is exactly what you're talking about, Eric. If you go to Setup and look in that left Setup column, you'll see the Lightning Migration Assistant that takes you through a few pages. And on the very first page of that Migration Assistant is that readiness report where you just simply click a button, download your readiness report. So that would be the first step. What I'll say about that, it's been really interesting to look at that readiness report at different orgs over the last couple of years, because when we started doing Lightning migrations a couple of years ago, that readiness report would be a very long document because there was still a lot you needed to think about with the migration. As Salesforce has really gotten Lightning up to fully production ready, that long list of considerations and things that you might need to do to make the leap has gotten much, much, much shorter. So the actual content of that readiness report will vary by your org. But it is the case for everybody that it has become a much shorter and easier hurdle, I guess you'd say, than it maybe was at one time. So that's really good news. But we look at that report, and the considerations that we're likely to find in that report, now that it is much shorter, might have to do with if you have custom code in your app. That's something that often needs to be looked at. And then apps are another piece that we often need to look at. As I mentioned, as of a couple of years ago or last year maybe, all apps on the App Exchange are now Lightning ready, but that doesn't necessarily mean there might not be a little leap that has to be made from the classic version of an app to the Lightning version of an app. And sometimes there's really nothing that needs to be done. Sometimes it's a very easy step across from a classic version to a Lightning version, and in some cases it is a little more involved. A typical case that I know we've come across definitely multiple times doing Lightning migrations is if clients are using Conga Composer. That migration is a little more involved to move from the classic setup to the Lightning setup.
So you got custom code, apps.
Yeah, Visual Force pages are the third one that I'll point to as a common thing that needs to be migrated in a more in-depth sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anytime you have like custom things related to, even if it's configurable, not necessarily code, but just the little things, and the readiness report does a pretty good job of identifying that. And then I believe it also puts together kind of like an effort listing, like how much effort is required to do these updates.
So from there, we start with that readiness report. That's going to give us a starting point in terms of technical things that might need attention during a migration. In addition to that, sort of a human readiness report, I would say, as a consultant, if I'm already familiar with your org, I'm going to have a really good starting place in kind of knowing what kinds of things you're doing with Salesforce. If I'm new to your org, I'm going to take a couple hours just to maybe side by side with a user, going through your pages and just understanding a little bit about what you're doing with Salesforce, just to at that sort of human user level, see anything that automated checker might not be able to find. And sometimes we usually come out with something valuable there, whether it's a technical gotcha or even just kind of a soft something that might be good to be aware of.
Yep.
So we look at any technical updates that need to be made. So that is one side, and then I would say that the other absolutely equally important part of preparation for a Lightning migration is talking about who is going to be using different records in your Salesforce and how they use those records. Because we have all of this flexibility with what we can do in a Lightning page. And if we just kind of, set it up however we want without talking to you, we're not really leveraging that flexibility in any kind of interesting or positive way, right? The whole power of Lightning is that we can bring it around your business process to optimize it. Well, to do that, we need to talk about what is that business process. So how is a sales user interacting with opportunities, and then how can the Lightning components come together with that to really, have an interface that's really going to pop and really going to help those users.
Awesome. So anything else that you'd want to add to that with migrating to Lightning? I suppose it'd be a great opportunity to look at all the other things that you wish you could have done with Classic, but now it's, a lot of these things are now possible. So it's going back to say, I wish I could have done that.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I think it really is a great opportunity for a once through of your Salesforce, maybe your backlog or your wish list, because absolutely, we might find that some of those things that may have seemed like a difficult thing to implement in Classic might now be not at all difficult in Lightning, or might be right there at our fingertips with Lightning, or it might be the case that if we're making some change with the Lightning interface, it might also be a strategic time to implement some other upgrades and changes kind of all into the same package. So absolutely, having just a little bit of a comprehensive conversation about your Salesforce, kind of your needs, wants, and wishes, capturing all of that, and then designing that strategy for how are we going to prioritize all of this into Lightning. And that's just really a conversation between the consultant and the client to see what that looks like.
And the migration itself isn't so much invasive, because it's really talking about the arrangement of the data. The back end stays the same, but it's really, how do we make it better? How do we make users want to use Salesforce more? I mean, that was the biggest complaint with Classic. It's just a data entry, tool. It's not a tool that's helping me do my job.
Yeah, we all know from technology changes that we've been through in our jobs and whatnot, that change is hard or whatever. And I can't say that that's not true with this, but it really has been, surprising and fun to see with Lightning migrations that the users really like it. Like, it's not difficult in the sense often that some technical changes can be, because we can make it so obviously better and easier to use that user adoption and that excitement on the back end can be really kind of a fun part of the project.
Awesome. So let's kind of end it with the last step of actually kind of, in your journey, or I guess the first step of starting the journey to migrating to Lightning is working with a partner. So Salesforce in the Migration Assistant does say it is advised to work with a partner. Not to say you can't try to learn it on your own. If you're a certified admin, go after it. There is user groups that you can definitely reach out to get help. But the recommendation from Salesforce is to work with a Salesforce certified partner.
Yep, I do think that is a good recommendation. I'm always in favor of people, doing things as they're able within their own Salesforce, but I think working with a partner who has experience with Lightning is advisable, because the power of Lightning is in all of these many new tools that we have in Lightning now for the first time, and in the flexibility in so many different directions in Lightning, right? And it just simply takes time and experience and practice to become familiar and to master all of those options, and to be able to, match up all those flexible options with various kinds of business use cases, right? And that's what a consultant can really offer. Having done multiple migrations and doing this just day in and day out for years, it's not we're just familiar with what those options are, and we can listen to your business use cases and point you toward options that you're going to be excited about and implement them for you in a way that is fun and easy, and really help you maximize that process, and rather than maybe dragging your users through a more difficult change process where you try something and it's not working really well, and then people get frustrated with the process, leveraging the experience of someone who's done it a lot and can show you some good options and just take you through that process towards landing it really well the first time. I think that's important.
Get it done right the first time.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, Stephanie. And for all of you guys that were tuning in, we do have a migration guide that we put together for all of our customers that are making the leap. So we have some things that we've learned along the way. So we'll be including that in the link. For those of you that are listening to this audio podcast, you can head over to our website and you'll find that migration guide for Lightning. Otherwise, you can find the link in the description here. So we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Steph.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks for watching this video about migrating to Lightning Now. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe. You can find more of our videos on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. As mentioned in the video earlier, we do have a guide to migrating to Lightning. If you'd like to access it, that's in the description here, or you can find it on our website. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.